Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today is Monday and it's actually Monday the 8th of June and it is 23 minutes past 12. So I have had a clinic this morning. I actually work from home, which is probably something that I will discuss on the channel because I always get asked the question as a pharmacist, how do you work from home? But yeah, I've done my clinic this morning and I just thought with this video I wanted to do a little mini health reset. For the last, I would say 6 months, I haven't really been feeling 100%. So I've had a few health issues going on, which I probably will discuss actually later on in this video because I'm due to get some results from some scans that I've had. But I've been feeling a lot better over the last couple of weeks. I've just come back from America a couple of weeks ago where we were away for 2 weeks. We ended up going to Disney World, which was amazing. But obviously health-wise, during that period, I haven't been 100%. So for those of you who know me and follow this channel will know that I own a blood testing company with my husband, who is also a pharmacist. And I just thought the best way to actually start the video would actually be to do baseline bloods. So this is the testing kit and I'm going to do it with you today. I think it's a really good way to actually just get a baseline, like I say, so that I have something to work towards. I like to do my bloods at least once a year. The particular panel that I have chosen and the one that we focus most on within our company is a metabolic profile. The reason being is because insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction is it is the leading cause of most long-term health conditions, and it's the underlying reason as to why a lot of people these days get sick. So within this blood test, it's going to be testing my cholesterol levels. It's also going to be testing my HbA1c, which is a measure of how well my body is utilizing sugar. It's also going to give me an indicator for any inflammation that's going on in my body. So yeah, it's just a good general overall way to get a deeper understanding of your health. Okay, so I've actually just come to sit down because it's probably better to do this on a table. But I was going to show you what's in the kit. Obviously, I've just said that it is 20 past 12. Usually, I would recommend that this is taken early in the morning before you've eaten. However, there's only one result within it, really, which is a triglyceride level, which will actually be affected because I have actually had breakfast and I've had a coffee this morning. So even though triglycerides are very important, I did test my bloods I want to say about 9 months ago now, and my triglyceride levels have always been fine. So I'm not too worried about that. And to be honest, if I don't do it now, I feel like I'll put it off. And so it's best to just get it out the way with. I'm also going shopping for a food shop, hopefully after I've done this, a quick little 20 minutes. So I can drop it off at the post office on my way there. So first things first is that whenever you are going to be taking an at-home blood test, you need to make sure that you're hydrated. If you are dehydrated, it just makes it so much harder for you to collect the blood sample. So like I say, I've had a coffee this morning, which that can cause dehydration, but I've also had, this is the amount of water I've had. So I'm going to drink this and then I will come back and then show you exactly what you get within the kit. Okay, so I've drank all my water now. Excuse me. So first thing that you want to do is you're going to scan the QR code when you get your test. So I've actually scanned it and it's taken me to this website. So this is an advanced heart health. Like I say, it's also going to check your metabolic health as well. So then you press start and then it basically on our website, it will give you a step-by-step guide on how to do it. So confirm that you've read obviously all of the guidance with regards to that. Then it goes through some things. So you have to be 18 to do the test. You can use we use the Royal Mail as well for our delivery system. It goes through that. It tells you when to return your sample by. So whenever we're doing our tests, I always recommend that you do them within either Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday. And that just gives us enough time to actually get the test at the lab for it to be analysed in good time, so that the blood sample is not sitting there over the weekend. So obviously, like I say, it's Monday now, so I've got until ideally Wednesday afternoon to send it. But once you've collected your sample, just send it off, because when blood, like I say, sits within a test tube, it can coagulate, which means that it goes thick, and then sometimes we can't use the sample, and then obviously you'd have to then reorder a test, pay again. So it's best if you just do it on a Monday morning and then send it off probably like the same day. So I'm just going to go through this exercise again. That just before you collect the sample, that just helps with blood flow again. It's going to help with the collection of the sample. Make sure your hands are warm, which sometimes you can actually put your hands under warm water for a while. I have very poor circulation, so anybody who knows me knows that it's so difficult for me to find a pulse. So the last time I actually did this, I did struggle to get enough blood within my sample, and so actually some of the samples that I sent and some of the results didn't come back. So I'm hoping this time is better, because I have eaten, I am more hydrated, so, and my hands do feel quite warm. I've not long been in the shower. So okay, so make sure your hands are warm. It says short nails can make the sample easier. I'm due to get my nails done this week. My nails I've been on since we've been away, so they're a bit longer than normal, but let's see how we get on. Okay. So I'm just going to go through all this right. Now I'm just adding my email address in, and so the results will come through via an email as well. So make sure that you're putting in the, a correct email. Okay, I forgot my password. I don't know why I do this. Jess, let me reset my password. Okay, so I'm just going to now show you what it actually comes with. So you get 2 bags to collect your sample, you get 2 test tubes, and this is just because of whatever test we're measuring will depend on how many of these you will get, but the maximum is usually 2. This is a paper version of the instructions online, which I'll open in a minute. You've got your sample stickers, which you then add to these test tubes once you've collected your sample. You've got your lancet, you've got some wipes, and then you've also got some plasters. Okay, so I have filled in all my information, so now it's telling me to basically go to step 1. So it says open the package and check the contents of your kit. So like I've just said, it's got everything within it, what I have just put in. So then we go to next. Okay, so step 2, lay out the lancets and clean tissues, plasters and alcohol wipes on the table, and remove the cap off the tubes. So these are the tubes, so I need to remove the cap, and then I need to lay out all of the lancets and the plasters and things. So let me just do that. You also can discard this bit because you don't actually need that. The only bit that you will need to send off is obviously this with the prepaid tracked real nail thing on it, so I can get rid of this. So I'm going to put that over there. Okay, so now everything is laid out on a flat surface. Then we go to next. So wash your hands thoroughly in warm water and soap. So I'm just going to go and do that now, and then I will come back and then we can actually do the sample. Okay, so I've washed my hands. I'm now going to open the test tube, the tubes to collect the blood, just to make it easier for when you're actually collecting it. Okay, now what I'm going to do, it says, is to take an alcohol wipe and then wipe clean the finger that you're going to use. So I think I'm going to use, and you usually use your non-dominant hand, so that would be my left hand, and that's just because it's not really that painful, but just so that obviously if you're using like your writing and stuff, it just makes it more comfortable for you throughout the day. Okay. Like that? Yeah. So now we're going to twist off the lancet. So when you do this, obviously, it now has a sharps, like a finger prick in it. Okay. So now we're going to do this. Let me just, it does say, so start with the purple tube, and then it says massage down to the pierced site, but do not touch the pierced site. So it's important that you don't actually, you try not to touch the blood because it can coagulate it. And then what we're doing with the purple one is we're doing enough blood until it reaches the bottom line. So if you can see on here, yeah, it's 250. There is also a small lip on the test tube, which just makes it a little bit easier. So whenever you are dropping the blood in, you can just drop it onto the lip just so that it catches it. Okay, so let's try this. The yellow one you invert, and the purple one you swirl. Okay, right, let me get all this cleaned up and then we will finish off. Okay, so now all I need to do is just fill out these little stickers where it just, your full name, your date of birth, the time that you collected the sample and the date, and then whether you're male or female, and then you will attach them to the 2 tubes, and then these 2 tubes will then go into the specimen bags and then into this box, which will then be sealed, and then I will literally post that in a post box. So I'm just going to fill out my name. I am never the best at doing things like this. Okay, so now it says, now you're ready to retain your sample, so please send the collection kit box, which is this one, back to us through Royal Mail to the address specified on the box. So like I say, I'm just going to go and drop this off at a post box, which is near my house. So you've completed your test. So I should get the results back, like I say, because it's now Monday, within 2 to 4 business days. So hopefully by the end of the week, I will have received the results, and hopefully then we can go through them on here. And yeah, it's just a good way to sort of get a baseline, so that things that I'm hoping to implement in the next couple of months, joining a new gym, obviously it being summer, potentially being out in the sun more, being able to go for more walks. Obviously your diet changes as well when it comes to the summer. I make different meals in the summer compared to the winter, and then yeah, just sort of I can then potentially retest maybe at the end of this year, which would be, you know, around November, December time, and see if there's anything that has changed. I think, you know, working as a pharmacist, especially being, you know, really taking an interest in preventative health, I think this is something that we all should really be doing. Obviously I am only 32, and people may think, why are you doing it at that age? And it's really so that I can get trends, because like I say, a lot of people who come in to me are usually around about 50, 60, and they will have never had any of these things tested, so they don't have any data that we can sort of go off. So if they come in and they say their HbA1c, which is a marker of your blood sugar, maybe around about 38, well, if it goes up to 41, then your class is pre-diabetic. Now, we don't know how long their HbA1c has been 38. It could have been that 2 years ago it was 30, and it's jumped up 8 points within those 2 years, which obviously for that person is not normal. Or it could be a case of their HbA1c has been 38 and it's been that since they were 18. And so for that person, then that is a normal range. And so I wouldn't be as worried. And so that's really why we advocate for testing. And like I say, especially when insulin resistance is the underlying cause of most long-term chronic health conditions. So high cholesterol, high blood pressure, obesity, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, dementia, Alzheimer's, some cancers. You know, it really is an important test to do. So like I say, I will probably be coming back to you at some point later on in the week with the test results of the test that I've just done today, and then also potentially of the results that I'm getting from the NHS, because that's been a big driver as to why I am changing my routine now. So I shall catch you later on in the video. So guys, it's actually been a week since I last spoke to you on this vlog. I've been really busy this week actually. So I actually got my nails done finally. So I got them done on Thursday. And yes, my results did end up coming back. So you would have seen in the last clip that I posted my results on Monday afternoon, and I actually received them on Thursday. So I should have really vlogged it, to be honest, when I actually received them, because my face probably would have been something along the lines of, because I was really shocked with the results. But I just thought I'd sit down now and actually go through them with you. Just because I feel like it's an important topic to touch upon. Obviously, I do have a business out of this, and I am really passionate about people just getting to understand their health on a deeper level, mainly through doing biomarkers and biochemical testing. And yeah, I just thought that I could go through exactly what I tested for, what my results were, and then what they mean and why it's important, especially for younger patients, you know, in the 20s, or late 20s, early 30s, to begin the whole testing process. So I will put my results up here, and I'm just gonna go through them on my laptop, because I feel like that's probably the easiest way to do it. So you shall now be able to see all of my results come up here. So I mentioned at the beginning of the vlog that the actual test that we're doing is a cardiometabolic health test. So you're thinking, Jess, what the hell does that mean? It's basically a marker of how healthy or what my risk is of developing things like heart attacks, stroke, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes in the future. And why I am so passionate about it and why it's so important to me is because cardiovascular disease, so heart attack, stroke, things like that, are still the #1 killer worldwide. So we always tend to be scared of things like cancer. And obviously that is a horrible disease, and you definitely should be wary of it. You are more statistically likely to die from heart disease than you are from cancer, which a lot of people don't actually realise. And the biggest thing about heart disease is that 80 to 90% of cases are preventable through just making some lifestyle changes. And so that's exactly why I'm going to go through this with you, and why I always advocate for people to just understand your health on a deeper level. So within the panel, we test for mainly cholesterol. So this is the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on that are all to do with your cholesterol levels. So you've probably heard of the terms good and bad cholesterol. Now, at BioElite, we really don't use those terms, but it is an easier way for people to understand it. So the top number, which is the LDL, is known historically as the bad cholesterol. Now, the reason why it's known as the bad cholesterol is because this cholesterol has the tendency to go from your liver, which is where cholesterol is usually made, and then it can deposit into your arteries. Now, when we think about heart disease, heart attacks, strokes, that actual pathology of what's going on is cholesterol and other things will get trapped within an artery wall. That then causes something called a plaque. This plaque, then it basically becomes sort of this environment for clots to form. A clot can then form within the artery, and then if it travels to a blood supply where it supplies your heart or to your brain, that's when it can cause either a heart attack or a stroke. And so we know, and it's been tested time and time again, that high levels of this LDL cholesterol are causally linked to heart attacks and strokes. And so that's why we always advocate for lowering these levels of cholesterol. However, I think what a lot of people, or what we're beginning to understand, but within the NHS we're not quite there yet, there is a bit of nuance to this. So I will also talk about that within the video. And so my level was actually okay. It was on the higher end of normal, and to be honest, I will try and get this level down to as low of a number as I possibly can. A lot of people will say online that, we need cholesterol, and so we shouldn't be lowering it, to really, really low levels because you need it for your brain. Yes, that is correct, but every single cell in your body has the ability to make its own cholesterol. And so getting this level down to, a lower number is not going to be detrimental to my health. And it's proven that in patients who have a genetic variant where their LDL cholesterol is so low and they have no adverse effects such as, brain fog, things like dementia, people mention, none of those patients have any of those things. And so that's why I think getting it as low as possible is going to be where you're going to get the greatest benefit. The other thing that I would say about this cholesterol is that is a measure of a concentration. So that'll become important when I actually explain some of the other results further down. Okay, so then the second one we come to is total cholesterol. This really doesn't indicate anything. I don't really ever look at this unless the number was really, really raised, in which case we would then probably be thinking about this patient may have some form of genetic variant which is causing them to have high cholesterol, which needs specialist input. We don't really look at the number because it doesn't really give us an indication of what the cholesterol is doing. So like I've just said then, with the LDL cholesterol, if this was raised, we would be more concerned because this is the cholesterol that is usually going to be getting stuck within your arteries, whereas your total cholesterol, say for instance mine's 4.9, well, I could have had 4, which was good cholesterol, and then the 0.9 could have been the bad cholesterol, in which case I wouldn't then be too concerned. Obviously that isn't the case, and it probably would be very unlikely. And I will get on to good and bad good cholesterol in a minute, but you see my point is that we don't really look at it unless it's really raised. However, mine is again within the normal range, although it is at the higher end of normal. Okay, and then we come on to the HDL cholesterol. So I'm not going to speak too much about this because this is the cholesterol that is known about as the good cholesterol, but we are learning so much about this cholesterol that it's probably the most complex cholesterol particle or molecule that cholesterol is contained within. Out of all of them, we've historically thought about it as the carrier, which basically takes cholesterol from your arteries, it sucks it out and then takes it back to your liver in order for it to be excreted. We're now learning that that is not its only job, and it has so many other things in which it's involved. And so, yeah, again, the higher the number, the better. However, I'm sure that we will learn a lot more about this as time goes on. Okay, and then we come to non-HDL cholesterol. So this is all of the cholesterol which has the ability to actually get trapped within your arteries. So the majority of it will be LDL cholesterol, but then there are other particles. So there are things called VLDLs, which are very low density lipoproteins. These are very transient, and there's never usually very many of them. And so that's why we used to look more at LDL. There's things called IDLs, which are intermediate density lipoproteins, which again, they don't really last too long in the blood, and so they don't make up much of this non-HDL. So yeah, mine was 3.23. So if you can see that, obviously 2.89 of the non-HDL is made up of LDL, and then the rest is all of them other things that I've just mentioned. And mine was, again, within the normal range, although it is sitting potentially at the higher end. Then we go on to triglycerides. Now, this only becomes relevant, again, when these levels are really high. If you do not fast and you take this blood test, they may be affected because your triglycerides are a way that your body transports fat from your diet. So if you've just had a high-fat diet meal and then you go and test your triglycerides, they're probably going to be raised. Again, I would only ever be concerned of someone's triglycerides if they were really high, and then if they were high in the context of their triglyceride to HDL ratio, which is actually a couple of ones down, which you should be able to see, but mine was normal. Now, the triglyceride to HDL ratio, I don't want to bore you too much with the science, but it is basically a marker, or a poor man's marker really, of how insulin sensitive your body is. Mine, is fine, and so I'm not worried about that. I'm then going to go up to actually the HbA1c. So I have missed out the LPA, but I will come back to that one. HbA1c is also a marker of how insulin sensitive your body is, or on the other end of it, how insulin resistant you are. And HbA1c is a marker of the amount of sugar that is contained within your red blood cells over the last 3 months. Mine was 30. Now, why is this so important? Well, actually, when you look at the top 4 diseases that are most likely to affect you, the top one is cardiovascular disease, which is what we mentioned, and that is still a leading cause of death globally. Then we have the second is cancer, which obviously I think it's like 50% of people, or 1 in 2 people, will end up going on to develop cancer. The third is then neurodegenerative diseases, so that's things like Alzheimer's disease. And then the fourth is metabolic dysfunction, so things like type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. Now, I would argue that all of those 4 things actually, if you have insulin resistance, it's going to increase your risk of all of those things. So with HbA1c, we really ideally want this to be low, because we want your body to be able to use the sugar that it has in its blood effectively. If it cannot do this and it becomes what we call insulin resistant, this number will rise. You'll have more sugar in your blood because your body is not able to actually utilize it to put it inside cells, because insulin no longer works. I actually might do a further video on this because a lot of my diet actually focuses around insulin resistance. So I potentially might do some, I don't know, maybe some recipes with you or something like that. That might be interesting to see, or to give you some ideas of, how to better manage your blood sugars, especially if you are someone who has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes as well. Okay, so then we come down to our ApoB. Now, this is called apolipoprotein B, and this is arguably probably one of the best markers, or the best indicators that we have when it comes to measuring your cardiovascular risk, so your risk of having a heart attack or a stroke. Now, the reason being is because ApoB, every single LDL particle contains an ApoB on it. So what you have to sort of think about is cholesterol is cholesterol, and the issue that or the issues that we have with cholesterol is how it's packaged. So cholesterol is made within every cell of your body, but it has to be packaged into something in order to be transported through your blood. And that's because it's a fat. And so if you think about oil and water, they do not mix. Your blood is water-based, whereas, cholesterol is fat-based. So it has to be encased in something in order for it to actually be transported. Now, so it's usually in an LDL, like we've just said. Now, whenever we're testing LDL cholesterol, we're actually testing the concentration which is actually within an LDL particle, not the actual particle number. Now, every LDL cholesterol contains an ApoB particle. So if you think about a street, and the street has cars, so we've got street number 1, and it has 1 car on it, but there's 5 people in that car. So if you think about the car as the particle, it has a concentration of 5 people in it. So your LDL concentration will come back as 5. However, your ApoB will come back as 1 because it's contained within 1 particle. If we then go to the second street and then you have 5 cars, each with 1 person in, you then still have a concentration of an LDL level of 5. However, your ApoB number would be 5 also. Now, if you think about which one is more likely to cause a crash, it's always going to be the one with more particles because there's more chance of collision. And that's exactly what we're testing here. So my ApoB is testing a particle number. The higher the number, the higher the risk. The lower the number, the lower the risk. And that's when I was talking about earlier about the nuances associated with LDL cholesterol, is that we now know that particle number matter, particle size also matter. So that comes down to kind of the triglyceride levels. If you have higher triglycerides, it's more likely that the particles will be smaller, which they're more atherogenic particles. And then we also need to know whether the particles are what we call oxidized. Again, that's going really into the science, but my ApoB number was actually fine. Now, anything below 80 is considered optimal, or I think it may even be 70 or 75. I'd have to check that. Mine's a little bit higher than that, but I'm not too concerned about it because I've actually checked my level for the last 3 years and it's remained stable. Now, as I'm getting older, you would expect that your cholesterol levels do tend to get higher. There's a couple of reasons why, but one of them is because your liver function tends to decline. And one of the reasons as to why we have high cholesterol is because your liver is not able to get rid of it as effectively as what it used to. So I'm actually quite happy with that it's remained stable. And this is one of the other reasons as to why I advocate for people to get tested at least once a year or even every 2 years. Because you have data. So now I have data from the last 3 years where I know that my HbA1c has not risen. I know that my ApoB has not really risen. Now, I do know that if you look further down where it says high sensitivity C-reactive protein or HSCRP, that has actually gone up. Now, why is this one important? Well, actually, your CRP is a measure of any inflammation. Now, inflammation causes damage to your blood vessels. So does insulin resistance. So this is where you can start to begin to see why we test for all these things. If you have insulin resistance and you have your blood vessel, insulin resistance can cause damage to it. If you then have high levels of inflammation, that can cause further damage. If you then have high levels of this LDL cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol's job really is to come and repair the wall. So then that can get stuck, and then that's when the plaque can start to form. That's when, things start to go wrong. And so if you mitigate all of those risks, so if you make sure that you are insulin sensitive, and if you make sure that you're keeping your inflammation levels as low as you possibly can, you're then reducing your risk of these particles of LDL actually adhering to the wall, getting stuck, and then causing this whole process to go on. I hope that I've made myself clear. It's really difficult, to be honest, to actually explain science in such detail, but try and put it in a way that is understandable. But when it comes to the HSCRP, for instance, inflammation can be caused by many things. I actually have just personally been unwell with a viral infection. So I'm thinking that it might have been slightly raised because of that. Anything below 5 is considered normal. However, I would always be sort of looking to be below 1. Anything above that, there's something going on. There is something there that it could be stress related. Cortisol does also increase your inflammatory markers. So if you're constantly or persistently being stressed out, you're constantly spiking cortisol, this can increase it. And over time, like I say, it's going to cause damage. and this is again another reason why I'm saying to test now, is because it's not going to cause me too much damage now. I mean, I don't know what it's, the likelihood is that it won't, but if my CRP was potentially that level for, you know, the next 10 years, it's being given 10 years in order to actually cause damage, and that's where it becomes an issue. Now, what we tend to see within the NHS, I see it all of the time, is, you know, people will not have any of this data, and they'll come to us at the age of 50, which is when things really start to, you know, your body's really good at compensating. And then, you know, at 50, things start to go wrong. Obviously, for women, hormonal changes tend to occur. You've usually, you know, you've got teenage children, which can cause stresses. Your job usually tends to change. So 50 is an age where both men and women, you know, we start to see changes. And then people will come in, their cholesterol will be really high, their blood pressure will be really high. And then it's a case of, we have no data to see, well, is this normal for you? Or, you know, how fast has this occurred? If we had data, we would know, you know, for instance, patient A came in and their cholesterol had been raised for the last 20 years. Well, I'm more concerned about that patient, or because than a patient who's come in and their, you know, bad cholesterol, their LDL cholesterol, ApoB, had been low up until a couple of years ago, when all of a sudden she hit the menopause and then it went up. I'd be less concerned about that person, because the damage has only been occurring for, like, you know, the last couple of years rather than the last 10 for the other patients. And so this is where preventative health and checking your data and following trends within your own personal health journey is really important. And so, like I say, with that, I'm definitely going to get my levels rechecked in 3 months' time to see if that has come down, because, you know, I ideally don't want that to be high. We then look at your ApoB A1. Now, this is just one of the markers on a HDL. Again, I'm not really going to go too much into that, because again, it's a really complex molecule that I'm still learning about myself. So as long as it's within the normal range, then I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, and then finally we come to this lipoprotein A, or Lp(a). So this was the one that I was really surprised about, because this particular marker is a marker that probably a lot of people won't have heard of, and it's because we don't usually tend to test for it. However, becoming more and more common, and it's becoming embedded within guidelines, where that's what we go off within the NHS, within private clinics. We use guidelines of papers and peer-reviewed studies that they'll come together and they'll say, what is the best standard of practice when it comes to cardiovascular risk, for instance. LPA is starting to feature more and more. And this is because it's a genetic marker that you actually can't do anything about. So at the moment, there are no treatments that actually target LPA, although they are in, or they're being made at the moment. So I think they're in the later stages of trials. However, you can reduce your risk of all of the other things that we've talked about. So reducing your LDL, reducing your ApoB level, increasing your insulin sensitivity, reducing your HSCRP. All of those things are going to have a positive benefit, or a positive influence on it. Now, the reason why I'm also so surprised is because my dad actually had his bloods checked not so long ago, and his LPA level was less than 7. It was like undetectable. It was that low. So there's no actual family history of sort of heart attack, stroke, or any cardiovascular disease in my family. So I just presumed that my level would be within the normal range, and obviously it's not. Anything above 60 is considered high risk. Now, when you actually look at the level, so initially when I seen it, I was a bit taken aback, because obviously I wasn't expecting it. And then on top of that, when you think, oh, I actually can't do anything about it, it becomes sort of, you just feel a bit helpless. However, I'm going to put it into context. So if I was to remain the same weight that I am, I had the same HbA1c, I had the same cholesterol results, and I just maintain my life as it is right now, then my risk of having a heart attack or a stroke up until the age of I'm 80 is 7%. So my risk is low. And that's because all of my other risk factors have remained low. Now, if I then take into consideration my LPA level, so it then increases my risk to 12%. Now, this is where you need to be careful when you're looking at, market employees from different supplement companies, etc. They could have potentially said that it nearly doubles your risk of having a heart attack or a stroke if your level is this. However, it only takes it from 7% up until 12%, which, yes, okay, it is an increased risk, but it's not in the grand scheme of things. And I think with me, like I say, with all of this, I would rather know what my levels are with things like this, than not know. With LPA, it's this really sticky molecule. It's to do with cholesterol. If you think about the car analogy, it's like a snow chain on a car. So some cars will put them on in the winter, some won't. And that's basically what your liver does. It basically attaches this LPA level to some of these ApoB particles. And then these are really, really sticky. So it gets stuck within the artery. And then it's also what we call a prothrombotic, which means that it basically induces a clot. So if it does get stuck, you're at higher risk of then having a clot develop, which is then what leads to a heart attack or a stroke. It doesn't mean that it will. It's just that if you have a higher level, there is a higher chance. And that's, I also want everyone to take that into consideration when we think about health. Nothing is inevitable. Just because genetically I have, a high level of LPA, it doesn't mean that I can't reduce my risk or I can't do anything. I absolutely can. And I think now it's just given me the extra motivation to be thinking, well, actually, I need to make sure that I am keeping on with my lifestyle. Like, I need to make sure that I don't let it, slip and let life get in the way, because it is important that, you do look after yourself, not only for you, but also for your family. And I think that's what I hope that our tests give people, is that they give people this extra motivation to just be like, I'm confident in what I'm doing. I know where I'm going because I have got the data to prove that, what I've just done over the last 3 months has worked, or what I did, actually it didn't work for me, so I'm going to switch it up. And it gives you time. That is the biggest thing that I could say, is that, I see patients all the time, like I just mentioned earlier, the patient who's 50 who comes in, the time it's not up because you can absolutely do something, but they've just, if they would have been testing 20 years before, they've got 20 years ahead of other people, whereas now it's like, they've got to try and reverse 20 years of damage over the next 5 or even over the next 3, and it becomes really difficult then, because you're completely having to change everything that you've ever done in your lifestyle. You have to be more aggressive, you have to potentially start on treatment, then you get side effects of treatment, and that's where preventative health really comes into its own, is when you start testing and you start thinking about your health at a younger age. It's like an insurance. It doesn't mean that it's not going to happen, it just means that you're giving yourself the best chance. So I feel like I've just been talking for 25 minutes on them. If anybody wants me to obviously explain anything, always just drop me a message. I also have my Instagram page where I'm going to try and do more shorter videos where I also answer a weekly question and answer, where, like I say, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, I'm happy to message you, I'm happy to answer it. Yeah, but I hope that it was useful. But yeah, so now over the next couple of months, I feel like with those results now, there's a few things that I do want to do. So I want to build more muscle. So it's something that I've put off for a couple of months now because I've been suffering with my back. Actually, on Thursday, I also got a test result back from an MRI that I had back in March. They were basically testing to see if I had any nerve damage or anything was wrong with my spine, and they've come back and said it was just like sort of general wear and tear, which is good in a way, but also it's a bit frustrating because I've been in really bad pain for, I would say, a good 9 months now. Where whilst I was away on holiday a couple of weeks ago, I was like having paracetamol and ibuprofen every single day just to get through the day. So it's good in a way that I know that there's no damage there, but it's also a bit frustrating because I'm like, I haven't actually got to the bottom of it yet. However, I'm going to try and incorporate more muscle building. Muscle building, when it comes to your metabolic health, is probably one of the best tools that you have alongside diet. Your muscle is the biggest reservoir for your glucose. So that means that if you with a person who has type 2 diabetes, building muscle means that your muscle's able to soak up all that glucose from your bloodstream, which is going to lower your blood sugars. It's also more metabolically active, so you just burn more calories at rest. It's also protective for your bones, so it's going to be good for mitigating osteoporosis in the future, which is rife in my family. Again, that becomes an issue when you hit menopause because estrogen protects your bones. So muscle building is going to be definitely something that I'm going to be trying to do. I feel like stress is a big one for me. Stress has always been probably the thing that I've struggled with the most. Yeah, so I feel like stress is a huge one, which again, my HSCRP could be linked to that, but I will recheck that in 3 months alongside all of the other bloods, like I say, just to make sure that things aren't going in a, you know, an upward trend. Just so that I can actually nip it in the bud, like, should anything happen. But yeah, so I think my next video, I was potentially going to do a skincare. I get questions all the time about what skincare do you use, or your skin looks really glowing, like, you know, what you do. And so I thought, well, why not do a skincare routine? I think as well, like, my skincare is mainly what I eat, so I thought that we could do what I'm actually using, but then maybe do a couple of recipes together that are really focused on your skin health. And then I've also been filming the video for the week after, hopefully, should everything go right, where I've been doing a bit of a home renovation project, which, if anyone knows me, knows that I've been doing that with Lee, my husband, for the last 4 years. And obviously things are still not done, but you know how it is with a home renovation. It's often sort of something that takes a very long time. But yeah, so I hope that that was helpful. I know that it was a lot of information to take in. If anybody is still here, then thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Like, comment, let me know if there's any other videos that you would like me to do. And yeah, I will see you in the next one.